What's up guys, welcome back to another video. So today's video is going to be all about how to turn your bike tubeless compatible. Now, you can do it without the things I'm about to show you today, which I'll revisit in a later video in the coming weeks. So I used to run standard rubber tubes like a lot of you guys, and now I run the tubeless tubes, which are more like a, I don't know how to explain it, more of like a latex feel, really puncture resistant. So I'm popping these out of here. I've been running for probably like 2 or 3 years now. Absolutely love them. And I want to do the tubeless compatibility test with the new Alienation 138 tires. I'm first going to talk to you about the differences between these Alienation 138 tires and other tires that aren't necessarily tubeless compatible, but you can make it work. Now, some of you guys watching this video might want to do the tubeless compatibility with your setup, and you're kind of curious on if it will work in your setup. So let's talk about that right now. Before we go any further, I want to talk about today's video sponsor. This video would not be possible if it was not for Phantom Wallet sponsoring today's video, hence the name. Fans open all your cards. Really durable design. This one's the aluminum one. They also offer it in plastic. All the accessories screw on, as you see there, all these little screw holes. Right now I'm running silicone band. I usually run the money clip because it gives you a lot of color accessories. They also offer a clear plastic front for holding IDs, as well as fanning out your keys. I'll display them here on the screen. If you're interested in any of these products, especially their newest one, it's going to be coming out really soon with MagSafe technology, be able to connect it to your iPhone. Click link in the description below. Use Fede10 at checkout. And big shout out to Phantom Wallet for sponsoring today's video. Let's get back to it. So let's talk standard rims versus a tubeless compatible rim. So this is the Alienation Malice rim. This is their standard rim, not TCS approved. And I'm gonna show you why. So if you look at the inner diameter of the wall right there, there's like the little recessed canal where your tire will actually seat perfectly in there with the bead. Let me show you how different it is compared to the actual tubeless one, and you'll be able to tell the differences. Now, putting it side by side next to the Alienation Vandal rim, you can see the differences of the center diameter and that canal area where I was just talking about, where the tire bead would seat perfectly in there. Now, as you get a better look right there, you can see the area on the black Alienation Vandal rim there where that tire bead's going to seat absolutely perfectly, really tight, and keep it really secure so that sealant will not come out. Now, you don't see it here on the other Alienation Malice rim. You do see that it still can hook in there a standard tire. Now, speaking of tires, we have a standard tire right here. This is the Eclat Mirage tire. And standard, I mean like this is your everyday tire that you could get that's in the foldable format. They do have wire bead ones that are out there. Now, the beading that you see here, also on the inside of the tire there, is what helps it stay connected to the inner wall of the rim so that it does not pop off of the rim. And that's what I'm talking about with the seating process. You want to make sure that your tires properly seated all the way around the rim so it does not pop off of the rim. And that's definitely something you want to make sure of, especially if you're going tubeless. Now let me show you another example with a standard tire. So this is the Maxxis riser tire. This will give you a better idea of that hook that I'm talking about there. Now if you look right here, that bead has a nice solid hook on it. That bead is going to keep it connected on the rim. This will work on a tubeless compatible or a non-tubeless compatible rim as well. This is probably the tire I'm going to be using when I show you guys how to go tubeless on any setup. Now, it is going to be a little bit of a process, but I'm going to show you the difference between this tire and actual tubeless compatible tire. So this tire is called the Alienation Prowler. This is a tubeless compatible tire. The tire I ended up swapping out was the Alienation 138. Both of these are tubeless compatible. The differences are the hooking technology that they would use to be able to keep it secure on the rim. There's a special type of a hook that they have on the bead to keep it anchored tightly. I'll see if I can get a nice close-up to show you there the difference. Now, as you see there, that's the proper hook that you need for tubeless rims. Now, this could probably work on a standard rim to go tubeless as well, and this might actually be your better option versus using a standard tire on a standard rim to be able to do the tubeless compatibility. So let's pop this on there and let me show you guys the process that I do to be able to go tubeless with Alienation rims and Alienation tires. Alright, so the wheel I'm going to be doing this with is the Alienation Acme Carbon rim. So I run Alienation through and through. I've been riding Alienation rims probably now for over 10 years, and I absolutely love them. Now, with the tubeless compatibility, I've only done this one other time on a different set of wheels for a short period of time because it was a prototype tire, and I haven't done it since. So this is still kind of new to me, and the only other thing I've really done this on is on my mountain bike, so it probably isn't that different. So I'm going to show you the tape, the sealant, and the actual valve stems that I'm using today. Alright, so the supplies I'm going to be running today are Stan's rim tape. This is pretty standard at any bike shop that carries any tubeless compatibility stuff in your area, as well as Stan's valve stems. You see there with the little rubber connector to be able to keep it nice and tightly sealed. The Alienation Blue Magic sealant front and back, as well as you want to make sure you at least have a compressor or a pump that can release the proper air pressure. So this pump, I can store all of the air in this area right here, and then I open it up and goes straight into the tire. You won't necessarily be able to pump it up at a slow pace because you want to make sure all of that air immediately goes in there because that sealant otherwise will come out. Alright, so the wheel I'm going to be doing this on is the Alienation Acme Carbon rim. This is already tubeless compatible. I'm going to be putting the rim tape on here to keep this nicely tight and sealed. I've already prepped and cleaned this entire surface. That's one thing you want to make sure you do. Make sure there's no gooey residue on the rim from any previous rim tape. Some would say that's a little bit excessive. I don't think so. Alright, so with the Alienation rims, they have two different valve holes. They have one for Pressa and one for Schrader. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find the one that's TCS right there. It's already labeled with a little yellow tag. Alright, so once you located the TCS hole, you're going to start 8 inches past it. So I'll start here and then roll all the way around the rim past this valve stem hole and connect it to the initial start point. That way I have a nice secure area over the valve stem hole, because that's going to be basically the most compromised area once you put that valve through. Getting it initially started is going to be the hardest part. So you want to pull it not so tight that you're going to break the tape, but just taut it enough that it seats tightly in the center of the rim. Make it past this connection point here. I'm going to go past the valve stem hole. Make it a nice tight fit right over top. This is a little bit of a process, like I was saying earlier. Like, it's not for everyone, but it can be a pretty cool concept. And what I'll do is I'll use the backside of my knife and roll this all the way around the edge and make sure it's nice and tightly seated all the way around. And I'll do that on both sides. I get a nice solid seat all the way around this on all sides, because this tape is pretty thick and it's going to especially help with any punctures that you would have where any spokes would come loose on your bike, and then if the spoke comes too loose, then it can actually puncture through depending on the angle of impact, which I've had that happen a few times. Now I'll do one final check through the center part of the rim, make sure everything is seated absolutely perfectly. And then what you do now is you prep the area that you're going to be putting the valve through. So I'll puncture a very small hole through that so that when I end up pushing through the valve and that rubber connection seats really well. Now these Pressa valves are pretty cool compared to a Schrader valve. So you can pull out the core, and there's two ways you can put the sealant in. You can either put it through the core and keeping the tire completely seated and then airing it up, or you can seat this through the rim, connect it tightly, and then put the sealant in the tire and then seat the tire. That's the route I'm going to end up going because I've done that previously. I've never actually poured it through the stem before, and I don't think I have the proper hose that you would use to be able to connect it onto here and then connect it into here to be able to make it work. So that seems like a little bit of a mess today. So we're going to do it in the tire, seat the tire on the rim, air it up. And as you see there, I'm going to pull this through pretty tight, not too tight. So I'm going to press this area through with my thumb, make sure it's seated properly in that area, and it's going to keep a tight seal. Now after you've pushed this down to where this rubber gasket is going to keep it as tightly as it possibly can seal in there, you'll feel it kind of mush in there and connect into that area. You're going to take the lock nut. The lock nut is what's going to keep it tightly secure to where there won't be any sealant seeping through that area. Now you don't want to crank this down too hard to where you can't get it off, just in case you're kind of like in a situation where you don't have the proper tools, but you want to crank it down just tight enough that the sealant won't come through. And you'll know what I'm talking about. A little more than finger tight. Alright, so once you've got that properly secured into the rim, you take your tire. Now these tires are directional, as you can see there. I've already been riding them, so they're pretty beat up on one side from grinding. So I put this, I already know that this is directional, so it's going to go on the grind side. I'm going to seat one side of it and keep the other side open to be able to pour the sealant. These tires are very particular, so when I say that they're very particular, they like to go exactly where they're supposed to, and if they don't, it becomes a big issue with trying to put them on. It becomes a lot harder of a process. So I try to put them already in the area they need to go into evenly in the rim. So then when it comes time to put the sealant in, it will not be that much of a fight to be able to get this to work. So after properly seating the one side, you're gonna properly seat the other side, but leave about 8 to 10 inches of a gap to be able to put the sealant on there before you air it up. I usually start with the sealing process up by the valve stem because you're gonna wanna air it up where the valve stem isn't on the ground, because when you go to pop it off, it's just gonna go psst, it's gonna spray on your face. So you don't want that. You want the valve stem to be at its highest point. All right, now that we've left our gap there for the sealant to get in, this is where you shake up the sealant, kind of get it going, make sure everything is properly done with it, and what I'll do is I'll open up the cap. So this one's sealed shut. I'll open this up. You can either pop this off like this, or you can usually just puncture it with the head of it, and it should work out. Now this stuff can be pretty messy if you don't do it right, and hopefully I don't get too much of a mess down here because I'm about to move out of this house and I don't want there to be any issues. So I'm gonna put all of the sealant in there. So I'm going to be using all of the sealant through this to make sure that we have the proper puncture resistance in this. Alright, all the sealant is in there. This is the slow and steady process. I know a lot of people would use this technique, keeping it close to their face, but there's really no other proper technique without trying to not getting on you. So right about to seat on, there it goes. Alright, now that it's properly seated on there, this is where it becomes pretty tricky. Like I said, you want to make sure this valve is facing downwards but at the top level. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to air up the pump now. So my pump has a specific little gauge on it to where when I'm pumping it up, I can store the air in the tube, as in the tube of the pump here, and then I have a release valve and it airs it straight up. So I'm going to put it on my couch and hopefully it doesn't get everywhere. So no matter what I do is I properly put this on here like this, and I will close it up, and then there's this little valve thing here. Close that. So I'll pump it up and I'll go, let's see, where are we at right now? 20. A lot of you mountain bikers are probably cringing. Here's 30. We'll go about that. Here we go. Release. 3, 2, 1. There we go. Now you'll start to hear it properly seal. It'll start to pop. Not pop like you hear a tube pop, but you'll hear the bead. There you go, hear it? And there you have it. Alright, as you see, they're all ready to ride. What I'm going to do is pop on the same thing on the front one and get this thing out for a session. I think the next video you guys see will be my overall thoughts on this and if this is actually a thing for street riding. So with that being said, if you guys have any suggestions for future videos or you want to see a video like I was talking about, we're doing tubeless compatibility with a standard rim, standard tire, put those in the comments below. With that being said, if you guys like this video, drop a like. If you love it, hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next one.